Namaste Vikram sir.
Namaste.
Welcome to Prana Stories.
Thank you.
It's so interesting that we cover so many varied topics on Prana Stories. So we already sort of covered the Dharma Shastras. Kashyap sir spoke about it. And I know that you are a practicing lawyer and then you have a deep interest in history and the Shastras in general, and specifically the Dharma Shastras and the Arthashastras. So I thought, why not we speak about Arthashastra specifically? So thank you once again for accepting our invitation and coming on board and conversing about Arthashastra. Welcome once again.
Yeah, I'm also. It's my pleasure being here, and thank you.
Yeah. So let's get straight into the topic. Now, like I said offline, right? Many people associate. There are people who have some idea of Chanakya, who wrote the Arthashastra, and also some idea of Arthashastra. They kind of relate it to the economics of it. So let's get to the basics and say, what is Arthashastra? When was it written? Who wrote it? What's the history behind it? A little general topics of what are the themes in Arthashastra and stuff like that. So yeah, the mic is yours.
Yeah. Arthashastra is not just confined to economics. That is a popular misconception. It covers a range of subjects, but the primary focus is on polity, administration and statecraft. And economics is a very important aspect of administration and running a country. So the focus of Arthashastra is on statecraft.
Okay.
And in which economics is quite a huge part.
Huge part of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it also has many other things like diplomacy, the justice system, the administration, how the administration have to take place, how the ministers are chosen, and what is the council, and what should be the constitution of the council of ministers, or who should be the heads of the departments. These are all topics which are covered in Arthashastra. Basically, it is the Shastra for statecraft.
Okay. The statecraft, polity and administration.
Yes, statecraft covers all these things.
Okay.
All these things. Basically, it is what you say that how a country has to be run. Yes. There are various names for Arthashastra.
Okay.
Arthashastra is also known as Danda Neeti, Neeti Shastra, Rajya Shastra. These are the synonyms for Arthashastra.
Okay.
When we look at these synonyms, it becomes clear. Danda Neeti says that rule of law. Okay, it also implies Danda means a stick. That is the power of the state to rule. And Neeti Shastra means it is also the what you say that how the administration of a state has to be regulated. And Rajya Shastra is polity. So these are all synonyms for Arthashastra.
Okay.
By looking at these synonyms, it becomes clear that Arthashastra covers all these topics.
Okay.
And this Danda Neeti or Neeti Shastra, Rajya Shastra or Arthashastra was not first written or formulated by Kautilya.
Okay.
Kautilya himself in the Arthashastra says there are many previous scholars like Brihaspati, Shukra, Kaunapada and Ushanas who have contributed, who have written treatises on Arthashastra or Neeti Shastra, and Kautilya is giving his take on the subject.
Okay.
And it has been a tradition in our Sanatana Dharma in all its various facets that the previous scholars, seers, the greats in that subject have been acknowledged.
Yeah.
And nobody is an upstart here.
There is no patent.
There is no patent. Yes. Everybody acknowledges and derives from the previous greats of that field. And continuing with tradition, Kautilya also very humbly, with all humility, credits the previous scholars, what we call as Purvasuris in our tradition. The a Shastra is either Sutra or Bhashya. Shastra contains Sutra or Bhashya. That is, Sutra means in short, concise prescriptions, formula, and Bhashya means exposition of those sutras. Kautilya's Arthashastra is in the nature of Sutra and Bhashya. He gives formulae as well as explanations, and he deliberates more on the sutras so that it becomes easier for people to understand. So it is in the nature of Sutra and Bhashya.
It also becomes easy to implement as well.
Yes, because Arthashastra, or this treatise on polity or statecraft, is like a ready reckoner and a manual for administrators.
Right.
It has to be user friendly.
Correct. Yeah.
Unless something is user friendly, then it will not serve the purpose for which it is made. And interestingly, Kautilya, wherever he has to quote the previous scholars, he quotes them. He says this has been the opinion of this scholar. There is a divergent view of another scholar, and this is my view.
Opinion.
So, in a way, Kautilya was a great scholar. He was pragmatic. He was an administrator and a practical man.
Practical man, yeah.
And once we read the Arthashastra, we come to know that as per the requirements of the society at that time, he was pragmatic enough to make newer rules, change the older ones, and also very humbly disagree wherever he had to.
Yeah.
So, our Sanatana Dharma traditions in all fields, including the field of polity, has been an evolutionary process which would cater to the time and place at that moment.
Correct. So can we talk a little bit about this great scholar Kautilya or Chanakya? What was his timeline? When did this happen?
Yeah. The story of Chanakya himself is very, very interesting and fascinating. The beautiful work of Vishakadatta, that is Mudra Rakshasa, very engrossing, very thrilling. It is like we see the OTT series.
Yeah.
If we go through all those chapters in Mudra Rakshasa, fantastic. It is an unputdownable work.
Okay.
And many say it is fictional, but the Mudra Rakshasa, it is dramatized version of history. It has historical context, it has historical references, but Chanakya and Arthaśāstra's mention have been there in many, many works starting from the 1st century AD.
Okay.
And Mahamahopadhyaya P.V. Kane, Bharat Ratna P.V. Kane, in his History of Dharma Shastras, has elaborately dealt with the person Chanakya, the timing of the work of Arthashastra, and has come to a definite conclusion after surveying all the available literature of that point of time. And he says that in the History of Dharma Shastras, volume 1, that the Chanakya, this Arthashastra is written between 320 to 300 BC.
Okay.
Or to be more precise, 320 to 297 BC. And the author is undoubtedly Kautilya or Chanakya, who was the minister of Chandragupta Maurya, of the Maurya dynasty. And Chanakya was the person, the key kingmaker person, who dethroned the despotic Nanda rulers and brought Chandragupta Maurya the crown. So now it is established that the author of the extant Arthashastra work is Chanakya, and the timeline of Arthashastra is between 320 to 297 BC. That means this work what we have today is of 2300 years ago by a great administrator and scholar also known as Vishnugupta, Kautilya or Chanakya. They are all the same person.
Same persons.
Yes.
Yeah. And then so we were speaking, and I have also heard a lot of podcast on Chanakya and the Arthashastras. The level of detail he has gone into varied subjects. I don't know. I mean, I was thinking, how is it even possible for a human to arrive at all of those things in varied areas of work or varied domains? For example, mining, or whether it is daily life, or whether it is relationships. These are so varied, right? Today we have all specific people doing specific things, but
only domain experts.
Only domain expert is right. But here is a person, here is a scholar, he's a sage, that he dealt with so many things at one point in time, and then and it is fascinating to know that how is it humanly possible?
There are two things to it. First one is we underestimate the capacity of the human mind.
True.
We impose our limitations.
Correct.
While imagining what all is capable of a human being.
Yeah, we tend to think of today's world as a specialist, right?
Yes.
But yeah, please go on, sir.
That is one aspect. The other aspect is that although this undoubtedly this Arthashastra is the work of a single mind, intrinsically with intrinsic evidence in terms of language, in terms of treatment of the themes, in terms of how a single thread goes along the entire work, undoubtedly we can say that it is a product of a person who has he is the single compiler. However, it is also true that a lot many domain experts would have worked on each topic, collated the material, given their inputs, and it would have been gone through by the great Kautilya, who undoubtedly an extraordinary mind, and he has, with the collaboration of so many people who would have assisted him in this work, this product has come out.
Okay.
Yes.
So he compiled from different inputs at various domain level experts, and then he compiled it, reviewed it obviously.
Yes.
And then he put it out there.
Yeah, we can infer these things.
Yes.
But while looking at the work, we can also infer that this is a product of a single mind. He might have got inputs from various experts, but the work itself shows that it is a product of
one person,
consistently thinking individual.
Correct.
And he also draws from previous works. He has not started it from scratch.
Yeah.
But it is a very epoch-making work.
Okay. So then, so now that we have given a foundation to this, what are the chapters? How many chapters, and what are the themes that are there in the Arthashastra?
Arthashastra is a very huge work. It is, suppose we, in today's parlance, if we see a lot of aspects what we see in our constitution in the Arthashastra.
Okay.
We see a lot of laws on varied subjects as marriage, inheritance, succession, also mentioned in the Arthashastra, dealt in the Arthashastra. And there are various other aspects like diplomacy, wherein there are no actually texts. Nowhere rules of diplomacy have been written as statutes passed by the parliament. But even diplomatic things, how a diplomacy has to be conducted, who should be as ambassadors or ministers for foreign affairs, or even the spies. It also has it deals with how a spy has to be selected, which spy has to be used in what circumstance, and what kind of spies have to be used in a foreign country, what kind of a spy has to be used internally.
Wow.
And it talks about forts, how a fort has to be built, how the military has to be organized, what are the various divisions in a military, how a war should be conducted, and what is the what all the weapons that can be used, and how weapons have to be stored. It talks about mining, geology, it talks about succession laws, inheritance, it talks about guilds, commerce, it talks about agriculture, it talks about manure, it talks about various kinds of food crops. It talks about administration, like how the ministers have to be chosen.
Okay.
And what are all the departments in the government, who should be the departments in the government, what should be the daily activities of the king, how should a king or a monarch or a lawmaker or a leader has to equip himself, what should be the daily timetable of a king.
Wow.
Even to that minute extent, all these things are dealt in the Arthashastra. So it is a huge work of importance, and I would say that studying this for a person who is interested in these kind of topics, it is a treasure trove of information.
I think it takes a lifetime to do this.
Of course it takes a lifetime. And I should say that it is the work, it's the lifetime work of a great intelligent and pragmatic, practical administrator.
Right.
And to understand that, it will take many lives.
Yeah. So, there are many people who actually the Britishers started this narrative that Indians were backward and we had to give things to India as such, right? As constitution, as rules and stuff like that. That they gave the lives that we are living today. That's what the popular narrative is. Many people still believe the same thing. So what I am trying to say is that 2,300 or 3,000 years ago, this thought leadership was there in India.
Of course, undoubtedly, not just 2,300 years.
Even before that.
Because Kautilya quotes
even before,
scholars who are of the hoary past,
yeah,
like Brihaspati, Shukra, Ushanas, who are even quoted in the Mahabharata. And the dating of Mahabharata, everyone is aware that it is nearly 5,000 and odd years ago. So I think it is highly laughable that anybody thinks that the Westerners or the British gave us all these systems.
Yeah.
The present system what we have is of course a colonial thing.
Yeah.
But to assume that there was nothing, that is highly ridiculous, laughable, and to say the least, it is contemptuous.
Correct. Yeah. So
I will tell you another interesting thing.
Sure.
See, a Greek historian, Pliny, in the 1st century writes that we are giving so much of gold to India and getting their products. There is a trade deficit for Greece. There is a trade deficit for Rome. And he says, what is happening? He laments. If there was so much of trade, commerce will happen only when there is strong, good administration. And strong, good administration requires treatises on administration.
Yeah.
Without good literature, treatise on administration, there cannot be good administration. And without good administration, without proper training of the leaders of the society in polity, in administration, there cannot be ease of doing business.
Right.
That the modern thing, what we say. And unless there is ease of doing business, there will be no trade.
Correct.
And when Pliny in the 1st century says that we are losing so much money as trade deficit to India. It shows.
It shows, yeah.
These are all evidences.
Correct.
And there is an interesting thing also. We are in Bangalore.
Yeah.
I think everyone would have seen the High Court building,
Yes.
the red building in front of Vidhan Saudha.
Vidhan Saudha.
It used to be called the Athara Kacheri.
Okay.
And in fact, if you visit the High Court, Athara means 18. Earlier, there were 18 offices
Okay.
and 18 chambers. Now, other annex has been added to make it 36. But initially, it was 18.
18.
Why was it 18? Just have a guess.
Is it because of that the Dharmashastras which has got the 18 points
Our Neeti Shastra, Arthashastra, they speak about 18 departments of government.
Yeah, yeah.
Even today, those 18 departments get reflected in the Athara Kacheri, which is today's High Court. Just see the continuity of it, continuity of the thinking of it. It shows that we have a long tradition of great scholarship and practical knowledge with regard to administration.
Yeah.
To say that everything has been given now,
Yeah.
I think it is only ignorance of the past.
Yeah. Correct.
It is an outcome of ignorance
Yeah.
and sometimes malice as well.
Right. So then, since we spoke about the polity, the choosing of the leaders and these kind of points, right? What does the Arthashastra say about quality of leadership? Because this is one important point that is even today also, right? So Chanakya himself was a great thought leader. I'm sure there must have been many other thought leaders at that time as well. And whatever the rules that he kind of wrote, choosing of leaders, how a king should be, or even the ministers, how it should be. Today we see how leaders are chosen here in our country, like how people get elected, and I'm sure like you do a deep study of Arthashastra, very few, maybe very rare of our leaders that we sort of elect, the MLAs or the MPs, have any idea of Arthashastra. I don't know how many people have it, but what is the current state and how did Chanakya write about choosing of leaders, and can you apply that to today's choosing of leaders and what quality of leaders that we have?
Chanakya writes about what all is expected of a king or a leader. What all we should look upon in a minister, how ministers have to be chosen, how a king should conduct himself on a daily basis, what all counsel he should receive, and how should be the council of ministers. All these things are dealt in detail. This is one aspect of it. With regard to your question that how many people in our today's administrators have read it, I really have doubt if any has actually done an in-depth study of it.
Can we say 1%?
1% I think is too huge.
Too huge. Okay.
Too huge. I would expect that Arthashastra is prescribed as a reading material
before you become a leader.
For all our administrators, including while giving training to the IAS, IRS, IFS cadre officials, to the state service officials. It need not be that the entire thing has to be made as a prescribed syllabus and exam has to be kept for that. It is expected that there should be some good understanding of Arthashastra amongst the people, administrators who hold pivotal positions, at least. It should be a trickle-down approach, a top-down approach, because while coming down the stream, it gets diluted, of course. But at least people holding pivotal
Positions, yeah.
they should be trained. And there is benefit of two things in this. Arthashastra is a work of a great mind. And the human frailties, the conditions, the emotions have always been the same.
Yeah.
Technology or advancement in infrastructure, everything might have logistics, might have grown, but the human being remains the same. The Arishad Vargas are the same, the Purusharthas are the same. And any administrator dealing with the day-to-day activities should keep himself abreast of these basic things. And a study of Arthashastra would be a great tool for the benefit of the society. At least a sense of what all used to take place, how they used to deal with the same issues would be really helpful even for academics as well as administrators. It is very much required. And as I study Arthashastra more and more, I am a student. And as I study it more and more, I am fascinated, I am thrilled, I get engrossed in this work. It gives great insights, not only for administration, but also into the human psyche.
Right. So let's take a practical aspect of it. Now, as a scholarly, it's definitely fascinating to read about it. And as we already concluded that nobody in today's politics or leadership has read it, or even has the will to read it, because it takes a lot of patience to read all of that. But let's take an example of leadership qualities. So I'm sure at that time, during the period of Chandragupta Maurya or Chanakya, the quality of leadership then and the quality of leadership now. Let's say I have elected a member of parliament or member of legislative assembly here. As a citizen, I expect something out of a leader, right? But that doesn't happen in today's world. So can we just see the difference of what was then and what was now, and how we can take inspiration and to get better what we are today? Is there any?
The theme of Arthashastra is Indriya Jaya. Finally, a person, an administrator, a leader is one who has control over his senses.
The 5 senses.
All the senses. And that is the expectation. And a person who has control over his senses, who thinks of the betterment of the people. This is the final word. In the modern times, we have heard of the concept of parens patriae. That means that the state should act as the parent of the citizens. This concept, we think it as modern. Kautilya in his Arthashastra very specifically directly puts it that the king is the parent of the people, and praja sukham rajnya sukham. The welfare of the people is the real welfare of the king. That is the objective, and how a king should be is a one who has control over his senses, who works for the welfare, and utsaha, that is active. That is the foremost quality an administrator, a leader should have. His vision is for the welfare, one who has control over his senses, and who is active. One who is not sloppy, one who is always agile, active, and working for it. These are the capacities. We have seen our leaders who are active only for their selfish needs.
Correct.
We have seen leaders who are not active at all, but an unselfish, active person who is intelligent and takes counsel of the learned. That is what is required of a leader.
So again, so let me come. Let's say in today's the way it works, the system, I elect a leader for 5 years. During the election, they come and ask for votes and all that. When I elect, after that, they just disappear. Now, there is no concept of can I cancel him and elect another leader? That's not there. It's like a permanent contract for
At least for the 5 years.
at least for the next 5 years. And if he has his own vote bank somewhere else, he keeps getting elected time and again because of his vote bank politics. So now there is no, for me, I have no power as a democracy to, say that I don't like this person, he's not working for me. There is no accountability at all. What is there in Arthashastra that can counter this?
And this is a very interesting and pertinent question, because while we see Arthashastra, Chanakya deals with monarchy, the king. We are now seeing a 5-year rule, elections, all these things. But in spite of the fact that Kautilya is dealing with monarchy, Kautilya foresees that if a monarch or a king becomes a despot, a dictator, then Kautilya makes provision for dethroning that despot. That is, the people acting through the Sabha. Sabha was a representative body of the people.
Okay.
And the Sabha had the power to depose a king and bring in a new person.
Sabha is in like Council of Ministers.
No. There were Sabha, Samiti, and as well as Council of Ministers. Council of Ministers is different.
Okay.
Sabha, Samitis were the representative of the people.
Okay.
Yes. If we think that there was absolute monarchy and a person could become a despot and have his whims and fancies over the people, Kautilya was pragmatic, was practical. He made provision. He says that a king can be deposed by the people. Even if the Sabha or Samiti is not working, he says the people. He doesn't say that if Sabha and Samiti is not working. He says the people can depose the king if he has become a despot. He gives examples of such happenings in the past.
Okay.
He gives an example of a king called Vena, who had become so ruthless and a despot that the people changed him.
It's a good example of monarchy as well as democracy.
Yes. Because finally what we have to see is the beneficiaries of any administration are the people.
Yeah.
And the administration finally has sanctity or authority because of the people. Whether it is monarchy or democracy or oligarchy or any type of government, finally the power rests with the people.
Yeah.
It should be so. And if the administrators are not working for the people, in the constitution, in the manual for administration, there has to be a provision for removal. So, Kautilya in his Arthashastra makes provision for deposing a king.
We don't have any such law here. I mean, there was a mention of, I think, a right to recall or something like that.
Yes, there have been questions regarding right to recall in certain cantos of Switzerland. There are provisions that if you don't like your representative, then you can, if a minimum threshold of people require him to be recalled, it can be recalled. But in a large democracy like India, it becomes a very cumbersome process, and 5-year election, it is not an election for lifetime. But however, the unelected bureaucracy is there for many, many years.
Right. Yeah.
So we have to take the spirit that the people should not tolerate a despot. there should always be a provision for recalling or deposing a despot. And Kautilya was, Kautilya himself and even the previous scholars on Dandaniti and Niti Shastra were very mindful of such happenings, of ruthless, bad despots.
Yeah.
And our civilization, our culture is not of few hundred years.
Yeah.
It is of thousands of years. And we get n number of examples of all types, of very great kings, of very great monarchs, of small republics working within the larger framework. So, there has been a lot of examples which have been discussed in the Arthashastra of previous happenings also. Like it is a ready reckoner. It says these are the precedents,
Yeah.
as we say in law.
Yeah. You do a citation of the previous
Yes.
one. Yeah.
Here also in Arthashastra, many examples have been cited just to make people aware
Yeah.
that these are the possible things. Otherwise, you should not think that, oh, whether this is actually possible or not. Or are you actually dealing with a new situation? If you have a precedent, it becomes easier to deal with it.
Yeah. That's why knowing history is very important.
Very.
Right? Because people today, the Gen Zs and not even Gen Zs, even the other generation, when you say history, it's boring. That's what they say. But if you don't know your history, somebody else will write history for you.
You are condemned to repeat it.
Yeah, right. So if you go back to history, learn about it, you will be able to deal with things better.
Yeah. History is like memory.
Yeah.
If you don't have memory, if you don't know what you did yesterday, you will repeat the same mistake tomorrow.
Yeah.
What is good for the goose is good for the gander. What happens to an individual will happen to the society.
Yeah.
If one person forgets what he was yesterday, he cannot deal with the present or the future.
Yeah.
Same is with the society.
Yes. So we'll deal with many other topics which are very relevant today. That is, what does the Arthashastra have to say about that? So, for example, we could see that the current issues that are very popularly happening right now is one is of stand-up comedy, and there are men committing suicides because of issues from the women that they have married. There are many popular cases that have kind of happened, and very, very sad as well. So these kind of cases also, how will Arthashastra address it? It will be a nice thing to even look at things like that. So we will do that in the next segment, but we can stop it here in the first segment.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for this.
Thank you.